In the middle of the desert, a man named Jake wakes up and looks around confused. He has a wound on his stomach and can't understand how he got it. He realizes he has a metal device attached to his wrist and a picture of a woman he doesn't recognize. Jake tries to pull the device off by banging it with a stone, but to no avail. Soon after, 3 men on horseback find Jake and surround him. In the Old West, if someone had a knife or a gun wound and was on the loose, they were most likely a fugitive. The men think there's a bounty for his head and threaten him.
You know how far west we are?
In less than a second, Jake easily defeats them. He steals their clothes and soon reaches a town called Absolution. He sneaks into a house to wash up. Suddenly, the town preacher, Meacham, points a gun at him. When Meacham asks him his name, the man says he doesn't remember.
I don't know that either.
The preacher leads him to the chapel, where he treats Jake's wounds. Suddenly, someone fires a bullet inside. The town troublemaker, Percy Dolarhyde, shoots at the nearby bar sign. The bar owner and town doctor's tired of this attitude. Percy drinks for free and does what he wants in this town because his father is a well-known and bossy man.
It's bad enough he drinks for free.
In fact, Percy reminds Doc that his father's cattle bring money to the town. When Doc points out that Percy always drinks for free, the spoiled young man starts collecting money from the townspeople to pay for his drinks.
Now who's got money?
When he approaches Jake, however, the latter refuses to give him money. Angry now, Percy points a gun at him, but Jake doesn't give a damn. Impulsively, Percy shoots blindly as a warning but ends up shooting another man's arm. Percy starts making excuses when Sheriff Taggart arrives. Taggart's also tired of Percy's chores and confiscates his gun.
You know that's not a good idea.
The Dolarhyde's right-hand man, Nat, threatens Taggart for turning against the family, but the sheriff ignores him. On the cattle farm, the workers drink and insult their boss. When Murphy goes to the river to relieve himself, something suddenly flashes and crashes nearby. Murphy climbs back to shore and finds the area burned, along with cattle and his co-workers. In jail, Taggart tells Percy that he'll be taken to the federal marshal's office, since the man he shot was an agent.
Federal marshal?
Meanwhile, Doc is stressed by what just happened, and his wife Maria comforts him. Doc's wondering why Maria is still with him instead of someone else who can protect her. Jake arrives at the bar, and Maria offers him a free whiskey to thank him for standing up to Percy. Another woman, Ella, approaches Jake and asks him about his bracelet, but Jake has no idea.
Where'd you get your bracelet?
He doesn't even remember his name. When Jake turns away, Ella realizes that he's lost his memory. She reveals that they're both looking for something, but the sheriff and his men arrive before she can say more. Taggart calls Jake and peacefully asks him to come to the police station. The man refuses, and Taggart draws his gun, but Jake quickly knocks him and his men to the ground. When Jake points the gun at Taggart, the sheriff's nephew, Emmett, prevents him from firing. While he's distracted, Ella knocks Jake down. He wakes up in a cell with Percy spitting on him. The young man taunts Jake, and the protagonist slams Percy's head against the bars. Meanwhile, Colonel Woodrow Dolarhyde questions Murphy about the destroyed cattle. Nat arrives to announce that Percy has been arrested.
Taggart locked him up.
Enraged, Woodrow cuts the rope to Murphy's legs and hits the horse tied to his hands, forcing him to drag Murphy along. Before leaving, Nat says that Jake Lonergan's in town. After carrying Percy away unconscious, Taggart handcuffs Jake and tells him that he'll turn him over to the federal marshal for his multiple crimes. Among them, the murder of Alice Wills, aka the woman in the picture. Jake's taken to a carriage along with Percy. Ella approaches the carriage and asks where he came from, but the problem is that he doesn't know that either. Taggart handcuffs Jake and Percy before getting his horse ready.
You get back home. Go to bed.
Soon after, Woodrow and his men arrive and demand Percy's release. Woodrow accuses Jake of stealing his gold and asks Taggart to also hand Jake over.
Or I'm gonna take you.
Suddenly, distant lights attract everyone's attention. Jake's bracelet begins to flash. He and Percy are confused. Flying ships begin firing onto the city, panicking the horse carrying the carriage. An explosion flings the carriage to one side as some of the city's inhabitants are taken away to the sky, including Mary. Woodrow and his men attempt to shoot at the flying ships, but come on. Jake breaks Percy's wrist. Taggart finds Emmett hiding under the station, but when he reaches his nephew, the sheriff's caught. Jake's bracelet suddenly opens, so he aims at the door and blows it open. Woodrow pulls Percy out of the carriage, but before they can get far, Percy's caught by the ship. Jake points the bracelet at one of the ships, and it blows up. The ship crashes into the town. There's total silence, and the survivors slowly approach the ship. Woodrow notices Jake's metal bracelet and asks what it is, but he doesn't know.
I don't know.
The two investigate the ship and confirm that there doesn't appear to be anyone inside. They hear a scream coming from a house nearby. They find a strange tall creature trying to escape. Nat sees the creature's footprints and realizes it's bleeding. Unable to track it in the dark, Woodrow orders his men to prepare to hunt it down at dawn. At dawn, Jake goes alone, with Ella following closely behind. He finally confronts her and asks her what precisely it is she wants. She reveals that the ships have also taken her people.
What do you want?
And she knows that only Jake can find him. Nevertheless, Jake refuses to help her. When someone speculates that all the abductees are already dead, Woodrow claims the ships took him hostage instead of killing him outright, hoping to save his wife. Doc joins in, claiming that Woodrow would need him because he's a doctor. Little Emmett also hopes to join him to find the sheriff, but Meacham says no. However, when one of the townspeople points out that Emmett has no one in town to take care of him, the preacher reluctantly agrees to take him along. In the process, Jake returns home and has a flashback.
You're back.
He arrives at a hut with a sack of gold, and Alice, his wife, is stunned. Nevertheless, she's not impressed with that gold because she realizes that Jake has stolen it.
That's blood money.
However, Jake's claiming that they need it to start a new life, but suddenly the coins begin to jingle and melt. Molten gold floating into the ceiling, and an explosion of light breaking through the roof. Alice is captured by one of the ships. At that point, Jake decides to join the team, to find Alice once again. Towards sunset, however, it starts to rain, and the water washed away the trail they were following. The team finds an overturned steamboat. They go inside and settle in for the night.
Get inside. Get out of the rain.
Meacham offers to train Doc how to use a gun. Woodrow's right-hand man asks him if they should have called the army. Woodrow argues that the army would have waited for Washington to give permission, but in the end they wouldn't have let him operate anyways. Woodrow recounts losing hundreds of men during the war for this reason. Little Emmett listens to these stories and is fascinated. Woodrow sees him as a son and offers him an apple slice. The man then gives Emmett his knife so that the boy can defend himself.
You look after that.
Doc struggling to use a gun, blaming himself for putting Mary in danger. Meacham tells him to have a little faith, but the doc's not convinced that God is watching over him. Meacham encourages him to take action, because God won't do it for him. Elsewhere, as Jake cleans his wounds, he notices that Ella's watching him. She finds Alice's photo, and he explains to her that the woman is the only one who knows who he is. Suddenly, Jake's bracelet starts flashing, warning them that the creatures are approaching. The rats move out of the way as one of the creatures appears behind Woodrow's men. Hearing the dog bark, Emmett checks on it and watches it chase something. The dog's whining in pain, so Emmett hides just as one of the creatures passes by. After a while, the little boy no longer sees those monsters and breathes a sigh of relief. But suddenly the creature appears, and Emmett drops Woodrow's knife in fear. As the creature extends its slimy hands towards him, Meacham shoots the monster, which jumps at him. Jake arrives, but before he can use his bracelet, the creature's gone. He checks on Meacham, who's about to die, and the preacher begs Jake to save their people before he takes his last breath. The next morning, they bury Meacham before leaving. Jake joins the doc as he awkwardly prays for Meacham.
Say some words over.
Later on, Woodrow notices Emmett's sullen face, so the boy admits he's worried about his grandfather. Soon, the trail leads them to a canyon, but they're ambushed. One of the men, Hunt, recognizes Jake as their leader. Jake punches him and takes control of the group. He orders the gang to take him back to their camp, and they soon arrive at camp, where their new leader, Dolan, refuses to cede leadership to Jake. When he sees Ella, Dolan's asking if she's the one for whom Jake betrayed the gang. He then orders Hunt to take Jake's gun before punching him in the face.
So I'm gonna ask you one last time.
Dolan's demanding the stolen gold from Jake, but he says the demons took the gold. Dolan headbutts him and orders his men to kill Ella. Suddenly, Jake's bracelet starts flashing, and he shoots Dolan. The gang drops their weapons, and Jake hurries his posse to leave. Before leaving though, Hunt returns Jake's gun, still loyal to his former boss.
You'll always be my favorite.
Jake's former posse pursues the gang, but ships suddenly appear and begin picking men off their horses. Jake's almost caught, but escapes, and blows up the ship with his device. However, Ella's captured by an aircraft, and Jake chases it on his horse. He anticipates the course the aircraft will take, and jumps on it.
Can you swim?
Jake fires the ship at close range, causing him, Ella, and the ship to crash into the lake. Upon reaching the shore, the alien attacks Ella, wounding her in the stomach. Jake shoots the creature and then treats Ella's wound. He brings her back to the group, but Ella begins to weaken. Jake's asking her to keep talking, to stay conscious and not die. Ella's asking him about the woman in the picture, but Jake remembers that he promised to find her. Soon they rejoin the group, but Ella can't make it. The group is soon surrounded by Native Americans. After they're captured, they throw the dead bodies into the fire, including Ella's. The tribal leader, Black Knife, blames him for the appearance of the aliens. Apparently, Nat is also a descendant of a Native American family and understands their language. As Doc and Woodrow argue with Black Knife, fire suddenly takes shape. Ella rises in flames and reveals that she's from another planet. Ella reveals that the alien creatures want gold, which is as rare on their planet as it is on Earth. The creatures are nothing more than scouts who capture people to study their weaknesses. If they allow the scouts to leave, they'll bring their own army to decimate the planet.
They're studying your weaknesses.
This has already happened on Ella's planet. She came to Earth with the purpose of stopping the aliens. Ella claims that only Jake knows where they are, but he says he can't even remember his past, and to give him a concoction to restore his memory. Soon after, the potion begins to take effect. Jake lies down and sees a hummingbird fly above him. He's remembering the good times with his beloved Alice, but then the aliens captured him. In the aliens' laboratory, Jake's looking to the side and sees Alice turning into ashes. Jake blames himself for her death because he brought the gold to their home, and the aliens followed him. Then the creature performs a cut on Jake's stomach. He grabs the device and attacks the alien. He accidentally puts the bracelet around his wrist and escapes. He manages to get out of that alien base, and when he wakes up, he's finally able to remember the aliens' hiding place.
I know where they are.
The next day, the group finds the alien base with the mothership at the center. Ella's explaining that the mothership's base is where they mine for gold. Soon, aircraft arrive and land inside the mothership. Jake's thinking about going in the way he came out, but doubts he could fight the creatures. Ella points out that they have an advantage. The aliens underestimate the humans, so they have their guard down. Black Knife studies the area, planning to take higher ground to fight these creatures. Woodrow considers it pointless to fight these things with arrows. They need a better plan, but as they're discussing, Emmett points out that Jake's left. Jake reaches his old gang, who's counting stolen gold. The gang plans to leave on a beach to get away from the aliens. Jake's insisting that it doesn't matter how far they go because these aliens will wipe everyone out. Instead, he proposes that they follow him to fight the aliens, which might even earn him gold. Meanwhile, Woodrow and Black Knife continue to discuss the combat plan. Woodrow's insisting on drawing the aliens out into the open to surround and attack them from all sides, but Black Knife refuses to trust him with his men. Nat tries to convince Black Knife to trust Woodrow, telling him that Woodrow adopted and taught him how to fight when his parents died. Nat says that Woodrow hates war, but never backs down when necessary. Nice story, but Black Knife doesn't get how Woodrow can be so great if he has no army to follow him except for a child.
Hot damn.
Just then, Jake arrives with his old band of bandits. After persuading him to join the battle, they spend the night nearby as they prepare their weapons for this battle. Black Knife invites Nat to join him, assuring him that he's a good Apache. Nat's amazed to be with his people for the first time since he was a child. Meanwhile, Ella tells Jake that she'll not be on Earth for very long. In response, he kisses her.
They won't be for long.
In the morning, the group heads over to the alien base. Jake and his crew climb over the ship's side to throw sacks of dynamite. They lose the matches, but Jake uses a cigarette to set those bags on fire. They rush for cover, and then the side of the mothership explodes. Seconds later, the aliens begin to attack. Woodrow leads the rest of the men to fight the aliens,
Godspeed.
while Jake and Ella find the cave from which Jake had escaped earlier. Outside, the battle continues as Doc rushes to help the wounded. Woodrow encourages men to keep fighting, but is soon unseated. Nat pulls a rope and captures the alien to save Woodrow. However, the alien confronts him and seriously wounds him. Woodrow shoots the creature several times, but the bullets don't injure it. The alien's about to kill him, but Doc saves him by shooting the creature in the head. Woodrow rushes to Nat, holding him in his arms, but the poor guy urges him to save his son before he dies. Nat says that he's always dreamed of fighting alongside him, and Woodrow says that he's always dreamed of having a son like Nat.
Get Percy.
Black Knife leads the tribe to Woodrow's side. Combining forces, they begin to dominate the aliens. In the process, Jake and Ella find the innocent townspeople attached to wires. They stare at a glowing bubble and seem hypnotized. Ella warns him not to look at that light, but Jake does anyway.
Don't look into the light.
He remembers that he himself was a prisoner like the others. Ella shoots that light, and slowly people regain consciousness. They hear an alien scream, and Jake goes to hold him back while Ella frees the prisoners. The aliens divide into two teams. One side leaves the mothership to fight Woodrow and his men, while Jake tries to hold off the others in the tunnel. Ella finally frees the prisoners, heading further into the cave with Jake following her. Emmett watches the fight from a distance but is spotted by an alien who begins to follow him. He escapes and hides in a small cave, but another alien finds him and tries to grab him. Unable to reach him, a strange little creature tries to get out of the chest. Emmett takes his knife and stabs the creature. On the other side, Ella's insisting that she can destroy the mothership using Jake's bracelet. Jake attempts to remove it but fails. Ella tells him that he has to clear his mind and kisses him. Suddenly, the bracelet comes off. She sets that thing to self-destruct and climbs inside the mothership. Before going in, she greets Jake,
Goodbye, Jake.
telling him that she doesn't intend to return. Soon after, another alien finds Jake and shoots him, forcing him to hide. Emmett sees the prisoners coming out, but Jake and Ella aren't with him. Woodrow heads into the cave to look for him. Jake reaches the place where the aliens have been experimenting on humans. An alien attacks and locks him on the table. The past seems to repeat itself. Jake's recognizing the alien he injured in the eye. The alien put a blade to his eye in revenge, but Woodrow shoots him. The bullets don't injure that alien, but manage to push it under a container of molten gold. Jake shoots that container, and it neutralizes the alien. The mothership activates, about to rise into the air, so Woodrow and Jake rush out of the cave. The mothership launches just as Ella reaches the core. She activates the bracelet, which explodes before the aliens reach her. People witness this destruction in midair. The prisoners have a lot of memory problems like Jake, but still manage to remember the faces of loved ones. Jake watches them, happy that they're finally free, and then he picks up a bouquet of flowers and goes home. He finds that same hummingbird. The town of Absolution celebrates victory, and Percy has learned his lesson and apologizes to those he's offended. With the gold collected from the aliens, the town plans to build a railroad to improve its economy. Jake arrives in town and bid them a farewell and go on his way. Woodrow says he would need a reliable man, but Jake says he's still wanted. Woodrow tells him that he's already paid for his sins during that battle and is now a free man. Jake smiles and sets off on his journey.